of employment, marital status, and number of children as a function of education and gender, the kind of the cross-tab of them. It's basically non-parametric. And we do this for birth cohorts, which we aggregate. And then in the model, we then draw from that distribution. Okay, so model fit, well, it could be better. We simulate the model for large numbers of individuals starting at age 25, and then we compare a bunch of statistics. And, mean, standard deviations, age profiles, autocorrelations, regression relationships, doing this by gender marital status. And the means and standard deviations are off for some subgroups. This is actually, I'm not sure this next point is correct. The simulated data understates persistence in wages, earnings, and family income, and family income. Most of the problem is that we don't find enough persistence in hours, and we've been trying to find a nice way to fix that problem without creating other problems. So hopefully we'll do that. Okay. So using the model now we'll get to the uses of the model. So first we're going to use it to study the effects of marriage, labor market, and fertility shocks. So again, the simulation, I kind of briefly verbally described the methodology, maybe I'll take a second. We take the gender and education distribution from the panel study of income dynamics. You can do this for any cohort you want. We're going to do it for 1951 to 1955. I have a certain fondness for that cohort. And it had better music, by the way, than those of the younger folks out there. So we're going to use that. A better reason is because they're actually in sample for a longer period of the data than some other cohorts. So the base case, we simulate the model for a large number of individuals, age 25 to 57. And then we have counterfactuals. We simulate again, but at age 34, we impose a shock on all individuals, typically of a particular gender and marital status. And then after the shock, all the variables evolve according to the model, including marriage and wages and unemployment, etc. And we go through age 57, and we'll display deviations from base case. So the first thing we're going to look at is the effect of divorce for married females. And again, the vertical axis is in logs. And I think you can see the labels. We'll start at the top so this is the labor market effects. And what you can see is that there's an increase in earnings of about 0.24. We don't completely understand some of the dynamics here, but some of it may, and they vary a little bit across the cohorts. But the pattern in this graph has been in every single specification we've ever looked at. Part of that is because there's an increase in hours. These women, after the divorce, are substantially increasing labor supply, and that's leading to a boost in their earnings. There's a modest increase in wages, and there's also an increase in employment. Now let me show you the family resources. And now we're going to start at the bottom. The curve at the scale is in logs, and maybe a little bit hard to see, but that number in the left corner is minus 1.5. So family earnings fall in logs by minus 1.5. Family income, that's the red line, falls by about a little less than minus 1. A better measure is probably family income per capita. We're using the OECD's kind of equivalence scale to measure adults per capita, adult equivalence, and that falls by more than minus 0.5. Now there is an offset in unearned income, presumably that's social insurance and also perhaps transfers, but it's in logs here, and the problem is that the base for unearned income is much lower than these other components. So that's a partial offset, but not nearly enough. Okay, so let's look at men. First, the labor market. And we'll start at the bottom. Earnings of men fall by around 11%, and then slowly recover, but not all the way. And that's a mixture of lost hours, which is about minus 0.07, And that's coming in part because they're employed less. The blue line is a small drop in employment. Wages also fall by around 4% and then slowly recover. So the drop, men's earnings fall after the divorce. Okay, but let's look at their resources. And this is the effect of the divorce on the time path of family income and for men who had been married. And they also experience a big drop in family earnings. And in income, the drop is around minus 0.4. But the drop is much less than the women experience because the men were earning a much bigger share of the earnings and they've left. Now, of course, the men have also lost the home production that their spouses were doing. So it probably doesn't give you that, a clear picture of well-being. If you look at family income per capita, that's the olive line or green line. That falls a little bit for the men, but not very much. So the economic impact on the men and women is very, very different. Of course, as I want to again emphasize, in any case, women are choosing divorce, and so, all right. What about marriage shocks? So we have unmarried females, and suddenly we give them a marriage shock. We basically perturb the random component in their marriage model, and they experience a big symmetric change relative to a divorce shock. They get big increases in family income and in family income per capita. Unearned income actually rises, and I'm not quite clear on that, but it may be because of property income. That's the positive effects of marriage for unmarried females. I'm going to now turn to a couple of the labor market shocks, and we'll look at unemployment and wage rates. I hope I'm not literally being drowned out back there. So here's the main response to unemployment shock at age 34. For a woman who's married and was employed. So you see an increase in unearned income, maybe that's unemployment insurance. And you see a drop in family income per capita of about 0.1. So that's a substantial drop, but kind of manageable. The family income per capita drop and the family income drop are kind of on top of each other. They're on a log scale. And there aren't changes in family size here. So here's the unemployment shock for married men who are employed. And this is a lot more serious for the family. Let's just look at the olive the olive line, which is family income per capita, and that falls by about minus 0.37. And then, we'll recover. It's a fairly fast recovery most of the way because hours get restored. You can see the unearned income goes up. Presumably that's unemployment insurance. Okay. Now I want to look at the effects of an exogenous child. Actually, I didn't really describe the models of fertility much. Basically, fertility is exogenous. It depends on marital status, age, and number of children. And there's a big labor surprise response for married females. The curve all the way at the bottom in orange is the earnings drop. And that's a drop of about minus 0.4. And it's coming partly from an hours drop. It's initially there's only a small wage drop, but that grows with time before recovering. There's also a pretty big employment drop. And the pattern here is where the children grow up. And with some recovery, it's when we go back to work and the hours go up. Now, I'll show you the response for married men. And if you're in a hospital room looking at a monitor and you saw a graph like that, you'd be very worried. For first approximation, men seem to do what they're going to do, and they don't respond to children. So there's no response to the labor market variables. General patterns, women respond to children, men don't, except they're all more likely to become married. I think that's also mentioned in the early slide. Trying to ground out the room is and diverse shocks affect labor force behavior and family income of women much more than men. The behavior of single women is much more similar, actually. And the patterns reflect the fact that men have higher wages than women, and they work more in marriage. They contribute a much larger share of family income. And again, what's missing from the story is reproduction. All right. What this graph does, it gets at the question, if you're having an employment shock when you're 34, how does it affect your marriage, the time you spend married? This is about the link between the labor market and the marriage market. And the curve that's most notable is the one for unmarried men. And that's the red line with diamonds at the bottom of the graph. And you can see that unmarried men, their marriage probability drops by about 0.06. It stays low for a few years, gradually recovers. There's no employment shock has a lasting effect on marriage. If you look at the married men, their probability of essentially remaining married and being married in the future goes down a little bit. The effects for women are really negligible. The next curve looks at the effect of a positive wage shock. And there is a positive effect. It's only about 0.02 or so for unmarried men. That's the only effect. What about the deviation? What's the value of education? And what role does marriage play in that? So this is a kind of busy figure. And I want to start by just looking at the curves. They're at the bottom of the figure. Those are graphing how the marriage probability differs with whether you're college educated or just have a high school degree. And what you can see is that the higher educated people are less likely to be married early on. And then, at around experience level 10, period 10 in the model, at age 33, 34, there's break even, and then they're more likely to be married. The second thing I want to show you is family income per capita. And what you can see is that the education premium is bigger for women than for men in family income per capita. And this is a mixture of effects on the likelihood of being married and on earnings. So I'm looking at the red diamond line, which is the family income per capita differential for women, and the blue diamond line, which is the for men. The next curve just shows you the earnings profile. And what you can see is that earnings, women have quite a bit bigger differential than the men do. And a lot of that has to do with hours. They have a bigger wage premium, but there's a big effect on hours, for the women. Okay, next I want to mention, what's the role of sorting in the return to education and permanent wages? For women, so what we do is we simulate a no-sorting counterfactual. And when we do that, for women, this education premium, which is very, very good, for income per capita, drops by 0.25 log points. It's a huge effect. So education is getting women into marrying men who earn a lot more. So the main thing. For men, the effect is only 0.1. It's still substantial, but it's small. And the bottom two bullet points show that there's also a gain from this permanent wage component that's a little bit bigger for women than men, but the size of the components are different too. Okay, the final set of results I want to talk about are the entry compositions. So what we do is we simulate the cross-section variance of the lifetime, of the sum over a lifetime of the level of family income adjusted for family size, and we also do this for earnings. And then we repeat the simulation, shutting down one thing at a time, like education, employment shocks, job heterogeneity, and so on. far, we have now completely separated measure contributions of knowledge into diverse shocks, the knowledge quality component, random variation, stock quality characteristics, stock characteristics, or stock earnings, or stock earnings shocks. It's hard to do that. We think we know how, but we still haven't managed to do it. And the contributions don't have to sum up to 100%. And they can sum up to more than 100%. It's a very nonlinear model. All right. So this figure decomposes the sum of lifetime earnings. The blue bars are for men. The red bars are for women. And it's on a log scale. Sorry, it's not on a log scale. The vertical axis is the percent contribution about each of the items listed at the bottom make. So overlaid to the left is the contribution of education. And it contributes, for men, 39% of the variance of the sum of lifetime earnings. For women, 36%. The other big items are race heterogeneity, which is more important for the men than the women. It's 40%, 1% for the men. Iris heterogeneity is pretty important for them both. And then race shocks are the other big items. The next slide decomposes the family resources, the sum of lifetime family income that a person experiences are being normalized by family size. And so over the left is the contribution of education, 40% for men, 34% for women. The next one's race heterogeneity, 26% for men, 11% for women. And Irish heterogeneity, more for men than women, and then race heterogeneity about the same. But the variance explained by the main characteristics, a main characteristic explain more of the variation in the income that he experiences than a woman's characteristics explain of the variation she experiences. The next slide talks about this. Why is it that men's characteristics count more for what he experiences than women's characteristics count for what she experiences? So basically, randomness in marriage, in sorting, and in shocks to spouses are more important for women. Husbands account for a larger share of the variance of family earnings. The next step is to do the full composition. Okay, I'm going to take 2 minutes and just slide. Okay, I just want to talk about our research agenda. So basically, with the kind of model that we're working with, we're currently building on using the model to study trends and inequality. And we've extended the concept of income dynamics data forward, I think, to 2013. And are going to make more of the parameters in the model cohort specific. And we want to allow for people sorting to change, greater set parameters to change. The second is to try to see cohabitation as a separate state from marriage. The third, which I'll just skip, is maybe a more integrated estimation strategy. The other kind of research that I really want to see is work on utility-based models of earnings, marriage, and family income. We can bring consumption into our analysis, exactly what we've done it. We could even have a calibrated utility function and look at its distribution. So if you need a structural model if you want to assess welfare consequences, design better social insurance, and really talk about the distribution of well-being. How can we do that? Well, I think so. I'm going to stop. Thank you. Buena pregunta, ¿no?